Yeah, it's just a video for anyone that's got a Ford, Mazda or Volvo that uses this LUK clutch pipe. It's the pipe that goes down the thing, comes from the clutch master cylinder, round the bend with the flexi bit just here, and then I'll just rest it on there. There's the rubber boot that goes into the support on the bracket, and then this end here, it's a right angle bend at the end, plugs in to your slave cylinder down there. Can you see that orange part? Can you see the hole next to that orange part down there in the centre of the picture? It goes in there and it's held in position by a puny little clip, which I hope is around here somewhere, and I hope I haven't lost it. But the problem is, when you get in your car, and if the clutch press, you put your foot on the clutch and the car creeps forward, or you come into your car and the pedal's on the floor, the clutch pedal, and you have to lift the clutch pedal up, or you have to pump the clutch pedal, then it's likely to be this union down there leaking. Now, you can easily do that. Just wash it down with some brake fluid while it's still assembled still. You can see I've taken it off. It's here at the moment. Here it is. Tuck some tissue underneath and operate the clutch, and then when you withdraw the tissue after a few pumps on the clutch, if it's leaking, it'll be wet with brake fluid. Okay, and it's a persistent problem. You can see on the forums, the car forums, and all sorts of people have trouble with this cheap, nasty crap union between the two. It leaks. Okay.
Yeah, I thought I would just break away from the video to explain this little bit more detail so that you've got a better understanding of what the problem is with this particular fault. We're at the end of December 22 at the moment, and you can see on the screen a typical listing of the actual pipe which you need to buy for your Volvo, Mazda or Ford to fix this clutch problem. Now, you can see the average price is about £50 to £60, and I think the genuine part is made by a company called LUK, I've been led to believe. Now, that's a picture of the original part again, and the problem relates to the little plastic union. They've replaced a nice solid metal union at the end, which is welded on, soldered onto the pipe, with a very poor quality plastic part, which is very variable in size and quality depending on the brand you buy, and as a matter of luck. And then located on the end of that is a little rubber seal, which is not available separately. So if you lose that seal, or if that seal starts leaking, you have to buy the whole bloody pipe. So they've cheapened the design, and in so doing made it very much less reliable. Well, the alternative is to get this part, which is a very low cost old version of the Fiesta pipe for the older models, and you can see it's got a metal union. I'll talk more about the bad plastic part and the problems with it in a moment when we return to the video. But you can see it's a much more solid construction with the actual union is fixed on the pipe, and with an O-ring instead of this daft rubber seal which they've contrived to reduce the cost presumably, but it's much less reliable. So what I'll do now is go back to the video, and now you've got a bit more information. Hopefully it'll make a bit more sense to you.
So what you've got is, on the end of this pipe here, on the standard one, you've got this plastic part which goes onto the end of the flared pipe, and on the end of that part is this little rubber seal. And it's not an absolutely tight fit. It will leak, and sometimes it will leak in the warm weather, sometimes it will go for days and days without leaking, and then it will start leaking. Sometimes it'll be persistent leak and you just won't be able to drive because you keep losing fluid out of the clutch reservoir. And unfortunately on this car you've got a combined, there is the combined brake and clutch reservoir, and don't be fooled. You could look in there and think that you had lots of clutch fluid in there, but in fact the level in there is deceptive, and you can top it up, and it takes a lot to top it up. And what's happening is it's reserving the fluid for the brake because it's a combined reservoir. There's a reservoir for the brake and when the reservoir for the brake overflows, it fills up the clutch reservoir. Clearly you don't want your brakes to fail if your clutch is leaking, but they've got a combined reservoir. So you fill this up, and it doesn't seem to be filling up, but it takes lots of fluid. So you could take this cap off and be mistaken that it's full, but in fact your clutch reservoir is empty, because there is a wall inside which makes sure that if your clutch is leaking, you don't lose braking. You know, brake fluid is still present. So the level here is reflecting the level of the brake fluid, not the level of the clutch. Clutch can be empty. Very deceptive, especially when you're trying to bleed it. You have to make sure you top this up every time. So what do you do about this persistent leak? And I know it's a persistent leak. This is an LUK, which is supposed to be the OEM pipe, brand new, and in there is a brand new LUK slave cylinder, but the union between the two leaks because of this thing here, this plastic thing that goes on the end of the pipe, is a very loose fit. Now what I do is, on the old Fiestas and the old Fords, you had a pipe with, instead of that plastic part, you have a metal part. So you can see what I've done. Focusing thing. What I've done is made up a brass version of that plastic part, and the end diameter I've increased. I've increased the diameter of the pipe slightly. I've increased the diameter of the part where that seal fits on. I'll show you in a moment. And also I've moved the slot for the circlip back slightly, so that the thing is pushed harder into the housing. I've done this a few times and it fixes the problem, but otherwise, I mean, what are you supposed to do? Just take the gearbox out again and change your slave cylinder? Not really very good. So when we put this together, I'll show you. So that brass, this brass part has been soldered onto the old pipe. I've cut the end off the old pipe, made up this brass part, and at the end I've increased the diameter of the part under the seal by 0.25 millimeters, and also this is now soldered onto the part. There's no path for fluid to leak underneath that seal at the end. This is the end of the seal there, you can see it. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see that properly. But there you go. So I've made this brass part and soldered it on, and that solves the problem. But it's a really nasty design problem, and you might find yourself buying 2 or 3 different pipes, this part, in the hope that you're going to fix the problem, and in fact, you know, it might be something wrong with the moulding or a dimensional error in the slave cylinder itself. And what you're going to do, take the gearbox out and buy a new slave cylinder and hope for the best. Really is a shite design. The older ones had a metal section of this soldered or crimped onto the pipe, I'm not sure which, but they were much more reliable because I've used them. And I wondered whether you could buy a standard Ford Fiesta part and then just join the 2 pipes together and use the old metal version of that piece of plastic crap which they now sell. So, you know, if this pipe is 80 quid and it doesn't seal properly, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's a real pain in the arse. So I hope you found that interesting. So if you've got a clutch pedal that keeps getting stuck down, or the car creeps forward and you have to turn the engine off, or you bump into something, you've got a clutch fluid leak, it's down to this union, and a new pipe won't necessarily fix it. So if you have a mechanic that's looking at it for you, make sure they understand this issue. Otherwise they'll go and say, oh, I'll put a new pipe on for you, new union. Then they'll come back and say, oh, you need a new gearbox. The gearbox needs to come out so I can change the cylinder. So that's it really. I just thought I'd give you the warning, give you the heads up on that one. That's my solution. But if you've got the same issue, then look to this union between the clutch pipe, your hydraulic clutch pipe, and the union where it plugs in to the gearbox.